sales manager and currently in France. Lindsay is in the UK as we are. And Alexander Singh, he is Senior BDM Digital Radio at Fraunhofer Institute in Germany, so he's talking from Germany. And he's the Vice Chair of the Technical Committee and the Vice Chair of the DRM Association. So more importantly, we will take you very briefly through the DRM technology, and then we'll immediately go to practical examples of how DRM is implemented, especially in the context of emergency warning. And Alex at the end will take you even deeper into the listener experience and what the broadcaster needs to know and understand to be able to use this important feature of digital radio, the emergency warning. Okay? Yes, and can I introduce therefore Mr. Sharad Sadhu, the Director ABU Technology, to give you an introduction to emergency warning from the perspective of the Asia Broadcasting Union.
Thank you, Ruxandra, and thank you for that introduction. It's our pleasure to be a part of this webinar, which is jointly organized by DRM and the Asia Pacific Broadcasting Union. I am very happy to provide you the introduction to the subject, and the subject is actually very close to our heart as the broadcasters and as a professional organization of broadcasters. Over the years, it has been gaining a lot of importance, and we consider it to be a vital service that the broadcasters provide to their audiences. The emergency warning broadcasting systems or services has several aspects. One of them, of course, is the early warning of natural disasters that might hit a few parts of the country or several countries, and by the very nature of the network that the broadcasters have, they are very eminently poised to carry that signal and that warning to the audiences. This is now quite a well-established technology, and several such technologies have been developed. The first one was developed by the Japanese, who have used it for the last 25 years. And then the other systems like the DRM and the DVB systems have developed this technology. The other aspect of broadcasters' role in what is called disaster risk reduction and saving of human lives is the role of the broadcasters after the disaster strikes. As has been seen in several instances over the last decade or so, in most cases the infrastructure of the area which was devastated was completely destroyed, so no communication could be had. The radio broadcasters had the advantage of beaming in signals either from a remote location into the disaster area, or setting up small transmitters and providing at least one-way communication between the authorities, between the rescuers, between those who provide assistance to those who need assistance. So this is another important aspect of the whole role of the broadcasters in the disaster situation. But what was very well demonstrated in last year's earthquake in Japan was the role of the broadcasters in what is called wellness messaging. And this wellness messaging has several aspects to it. One of them is, of course, to post on the TV screen or read the names on the radio of those people who have been lost and who have been found. It is very effective on this TV because then you can actually read the name of the loved one who is to be found. And the other role was to console those who lost their relatives and friends in the tsunami last year. And that wellness message has helped many people to sort of recoup and reassure themselves that everything is fine. So these are the roles the broadcasters play. The webinar today has two parts. The first part will address the role of the broadcasters and a short outline on what the broadcasters are doing and how this can be done. And this will be done by Mr. Ahmed Nadeem of the Asia Pacific Broadcasting Union. He is head of studio and training technology, studio technology and training. So he'll take over from me and run a very short presentation on the role of the broadcasters. But the crux of the whole webinar is the technology that the DRM has developed to carry these signals over the networks, and that's what you will hear next from the three experts who are listed on the slide. So my last plea to you would be, as broadcasters, to look carefully into the vital role the broadcasters play to save human lives, and do our utmost to equip ourselves and help the society at large. Thank you very much, and now I invite Nadeem. Nadeem, please go ahead with your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharad. Welcome, everyone. We are, myself and Sharad, we are in Kuala Lumpur. I'm not sure whether you can hear it over the microphone, but there's heavy rain at the moment here. Very heavy rain pouring down. But I hope you can hear me clearly. We just run through a few slides to tell you some introduction about the EWBS, or Emergency Warning Broadcasting Systems, how they work, and what role broadcasters can play in this. If you look at, if you can see the slides now, what I'm trying to explain is how the Emergency Warning Broadcasting System as a whole, how it works, and what is intended by the broadcasters, and how the technology will support them in implementing or in working the way it is planned. The Emergency Warning Broadcasting System, or EWBS as it is known, is a technology that can be implemented in existing broadcast mediums, whether it be analog or digital, both in radio and TV. And the operation involves sending a specific code, or what is known as the EWBS control signal, which is also carried on the same broadcast channel. There are no major changes that you need to bring into the current existing analog or new digital systems. The new digital systems, most of them already support EWBS, and those analog systems, old ones which do not have EWBS implemented, the ITU, through its recommendation 1772, has a nice explanation of how the analog systems can also be changed to support and provide the EWBS signal. What it does is it provides audio signal, audio code, which is specifically modulated. This audio code, the special feature of this audio code is that before the emergency bulletin or emergency message is announced on the broadcast channel, this audio code or special signal is sent, which has two functions. Number one, it tries to get the attention of the person who is watching the current program, whether it be a radio channel or whether it be a TV channel. There are two ways of doing this. Number one, it will switch the channel to a specific program or specific bulletin in case of radio, or else it will override the screen or override the audio with a special bulletin. In case of television, it might be a message that appears on the screen. Regardless of what program you are watching, this message will come on the screen and say, okay, there's an impending disaster and these are the details, or else it will guide you to tune to a specific channel if you want to listen to the details. So that is the one function of the specific or emergency code. The other function of this unique code is that if the receiver has a built-in EWBS chip, it will switch it on automatically, whether when it is on standby or in sleep mode. What we have noticed during the tsunami of 2004, for example, is that the tsunami actually, the earthquake happened the most hard hit areas. It was night at that time, and mostly during the night. Nobody is watching the TV, listening to the radio. Most of the TV sets and radio sets are on standby. So this EWBS code, once received, it will automatically switch on the radio set or automatically switch on the TV set, so that those who are at sleep or those who are not attentive to the radio or TV set will automatically hear the message as well. So that is the important two important functions of this EWBS or emergency warning code. In the case of the switched off or the radio systems on standby, the code has two sections. One is called the start code, the other one is called end code. When the end code is received, the receiver set goes back to standby. So that is the beauty of this EWBS or emergency code that is sent out by the system. Let me take you to the graphic presentation of the EWBS and how it works. This is a typical diagram, if you can see it on the screen now. This shows the typical layout or flow of how the control signal, where the control signal is inserted into the current programming and how it is received over there. For example, if you can see on the broadcast part, before it goes to the transmitter, there is this control signal generator. This generator is not a very unique or specific type of equipment because it only plays an audio code. This can be inserted to your broadcast channel or through audio mixer just using audio player. It can be a simple CD player. So once this code is played, after the code is played, the announcement comes, and once again the announcement is over, the end code is played and the receiver set goes back to sleep. If anybody is watching the program or listening to the program at the time when the signal is sent, it becomes an alarm signal and you hear the bulletin and the alarm signal again. So it doesn't, although the system is still working, I mean the program is available, program is live. In the case of program is live, it will you will hear it as a code, as an alarm code or audio signal. If this audio set or TV set is on standby, it will switch it on. Moving forward, this is a typical illustration of how the broadcast scenario works alongside with the other authorities. For example, the first thing that will happen is normally every country or every authority has specific organization or specific government office. In the case of the slide that I have taken, the previous slide as well as this one is borrowed from one of the presentations from our colleagues at NHK, how it works in the Japanese. So I think it is the same that can be applied to any other country. The meteorological agency or the agency in charge of monitoring weather or monitoring weather systems, earthquake systems, or what is happening anywhere in the world, will send a special signal, maybe via a hotline, to the broadcast station. At that point, whoever is in charge of broadcast station, or whoever is in charge of running the emergency AWBS signal will start this emergency code, and it goes through the normal broadcast channel. The receivers receive it, and in the case of EWBS enabled receivers, as I said, it will switch on, give you the message, and go back to standby mode. So just the illustration shown here in a slide. What are the requirements for implementation of EWBS? A few things that we have highlighted here. Number one is that a connection of broadcast station to government authorities who are concerned with disaster forecast or weather forecast. There should be some sort of hotline or some way that it can trigger the people at the broadcast station, the master control, for example, for them to initiate the signal. Then it should be an easy to use technology, utilization of existing facilities, whether AM, FM radio, or normal analog TV set. again, it uses it can be the signal generator can be a simple CD player. The other important thing about AWBS is that it should be a very low cost receiver. I mean, the receiver chip that is integrated into the receivers should be very, very low cost. It's in operation in Japan, and our Japanese colleagues have indicated to us that the chip costs about $1 or $2. So it's very inexpensive, and can be implemented in any of the TV or radio sets. The language of warning should be simple. For example, in case of the receivers, this type of specific receivers are not available to the public. In such areas, there should be such a system in place that it can maybe use in loudspeakers in community areas to give this alert out to the public. Let me go to the next slide, which shows what I've just said. This is an example of how the public warning system can be implemented in case the EWBS enabled receivers are not there. The reason here is that because in case it is night time and the warning signal comes, in such cases you can use public announce systems, loudspeakers, and central communities to alert the public. Some key requirements or some key areas in this technology is that should be able to provide warning messages in different formats, whether it's audio, video, text, pictures. I think once the other presentations that's following will show you how it is implemented in DRM. Should be able to override the current programming, maybe a superimposed image or text that comes on the screen, or it holds the audio and the specific alarm sound, and the audio bulletin comes after that, and should support switching on of receivers. Of course, this function is only available if the AWBS chip is enabled on the system. Should be an automated process with as little intervention by humans, so that it's automated process and it goes smoothly. Should be an integrated system which provides seamless operation. Okay, the other area, as Sharat also highlighted in his introduction, is that aftermath and relief efforts. This is also a very important area for broadcasters, because time and time again what we have seen is that when a disaster is struck, the telecommunication services mostly are destroyed, or because of the overwhelming response or overwhelming use of this system, it's not able to cope with the amount of traffic that is incorporated in. Everybody's trying to get the phones, everybody's trying to communicate to the other person, so it gets jammed and the system does not work. So it's again the broadcasters or the broadcast medium that can provide the best function in such areas. So it should be an easy to set up medium. For example, it can be, I'll show you in the next slide, something like a radio in a box, a small radio station, portable radio station that you can just bring over to the disaster struck area and provide maybe distribute low cost handheld radio sets to those public or population who are affected, and they're able to follow the news, timely and accurate information regarding medical assistance, regarding other relief efforts, water, food, where is food available, where is water available. And one thing that was very well done in the latest Japanese earthquake that happened last year in March, is the providing of wellness messages and psychological comfort to those people who are affected. In the same line, let me just go to I'll say a few things about the radio in a box from ABU. It was developed a couple of years back, and it was a joint project with UNESCO. The main reason that this product was designed was to be used in disaster relief efforts. So radio in a box is a transportable, easily deployable, portable FM station actually. It comes with FM transmitter, production facilities, antenna system, playout facilities, everything compact into one box. It is it is at the moment a FM station, but because of its modular design, it can be changed into any form of digital station as well. You just have to replace the transmitter. In case of it is DRM, you can just replace it to a DRM transmitter and it will work. It has also found good use in community radio stations as well as standby equipment for regular FM stations because of its compact and low-cost design. So what is the broadcaster's role in such emergency warning and disaster relief effort? It has been proven that broadcasting is one of the best mediums for disaster hit areas because, as I said earlier, the communication or telecommunication is cut off most of the time. It should be a combined effort with concerned authorities as well as for effective operation. It has to be joint work with the authorities because authorities play a very major role in, for example, the meteorological agencies who detect weather forecast. Broadcasters need to be an integral part of the national SOPs or standard operation procedures in such scenarios, and need to play an improved role in creating public awareness and such issues. The importance of this public awareness area is that when you get an alert, say the system is working very well, and when you get an emergency warning, how should the public respond? What should be their next action? So this can only be done by broadcasters, mostly by broadcasters, by creating public awareness. For example, when an earthquake happens, what should they do? When an alarm sound comes, alarm sound like this comes, what does it mean? What is the next step the public can take? Things like that. So that is very important. I think we've come to the end of my part here presentation. If anybody, any of the other colleagues want to add anything, Sharad, if you want to say anything, you're most welcome.
Thank you very much, Nadim. It's Ruxandra, actually. I think this was very, very interesting, and it gives us a sense of what has been done, especially in analog radio. And as you said, you set up the chain, how the emergency warning is generated and how it can reach the listener. And thank you very much for that. Okay, and so I will, as a way of getting into our part, the emergency warning and DRM, I think that we will just remind you of the value of radio in such occasions. And I don't have a lot of slides. This is my only contribution, but it is extraordinary to see that emergency warnings are needed not just in developing countries or in faraway places. This is the latest disaster that hit the east coast of the United States, and this was a statement made by an NAB spokesman. It was quite obvious that when everything was lost, electricity, internet, mobiles were gone, radio was the last line of resistance, and that was what became quite obvious. The radio chips needed to be activated, exactly what you, Nadim, said. So radio has a probably primary role in emergency warning. And let's see now how it really works with DRM. So I will pass you on to Lindsay Cornell, Chair of the DRM Technical Committee.
Thank you very much, Roxandra, and good afternoon to everybody. So what I want to do just is to give you very briefly a little introduction to DRM and to emergency warning, although Sharad and Nadim have introduced emergency warning extremely effectively already. So let's get started with the next slide. So first of all, I just wanted to tell you about the terms DRM, DRM30 and DRM+. And DRM, Digital Radio Mondiale, this is the whole system of the digital radio system for all the frequency bands. But sometimes it's useful to be able to describe different aspects for different frequency bands. And so we have the term DRM 30 to indicate when DRM is operating below 30 megahertz. So that's the LF, MF and HF bands, the AM bands, long wave, medium wave and short wave. And we have the term DRM plus when the frequency of operation is above 30 megahertz. So that's in the VHF bands, including the FM band. So if you go to the next slide, please. So just in terms of the position, standardization and authority to use the system, DRM 30 was published as an ETSI standard, an open standard, which is available to download if you're interested in all the technical details. And it also has two ITU recommendations, one which is for the system, which is a brief description of what is in the ETSI standard, and a second recommendation which deals with the planning parameters, allowing you to use the system and know exactly what sort of powers to use to achieve certain coverage. And if we go to the next slide, please. Then DRM Plus is a more recent addition. It was added to the ETSI standard in 2009. So there's just one DRM standard, including both DRM 30 and DRM Plus. And again, the ITU has recommended the system. The system recommendation was published at the end of last year. And also there are planning parameters to allow the DRM Plus to be used. Next slide, please. So what about emergency warning systems? Well, I think as the key issue really is that an emergency warning system must cover a large area and with very high reliability. And as Sharad said, it must work when the everyday services don't. When the telephones aren't working, when electricity isn't working, the emergency warning system must still get out to people. And really, an emergency warning system should also do something else that's useful, because fortunately, emergencies are comparatively rare. But people need to have the warning device with them. They need to carry the warning device. If it's small enough, it needs to be in a prominent place in their home. And this is so that people actually hear the warnings when they come. And DRM 30 is an ideal technology for this because it covers large areas and it provides radio, a really, really important communication service for everyday use.
Thank you very much, Lindsay. That's set up the scene from a DRM perspective, and as you said, it is an ideal technology. So I think Herman Sensen will give us some examples of DRM implementation, which is, as you said, although emergencies are not the system that will alert people needs to be with us. And with DRM, I think this is possible. It is integrated. So let's pass on to Herman from DGTA, who will give us some very clear examples of DRM implementation in the field of emergency warning. Herman?
Yes. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon and good morning from France. My name is Herman Sensen. I'm working for a company called DGTA. DGTA is a manufacturer of content servers and modulators in DRM. And I would like to say a big thank you to ABU and DRM for having invited us in this very interesting webinar. I will present, my presentation will be subdivided in two other parts. One part will be, I will give some examples of emergency warning systems that have been realized in Asia and in the United States. And the second part will explain how we can implement the feature in DRM. So please, the next slide. Hello. Okay, thank you. Yeah, before doing this, just a reminder of the task of emergency warning systems, although Nadim has done this already a little bit. So the task is to inform the public and the authorities with a maximum of reach as quickly as possible, giving all relevant information. This means we have to inform as many people as possible with the highest coverage. We are quickly, because we are in the world of broadcast. And with DRM, we have indeed all the possibilities to give the relevant information in audio or in text or even in video. Please show me the next slide. Well, these slides are taken out from a presentation that I've done in India for BES. When I prepared this presentation, I tried to find some implementations that have already been done in the world. It's not so many emergency warning systems have been implemented so far, but I found one example in Asia that has been done with a digital radio system. And this is an example. It's not DRM, but all the things that you can see here can also be done in DRM. It's the same thing. The Koreans, the example is in Korea, and the Koreans have a system that is called the TDMB, which means terrestrial digital multimedia broadcasting. This is it's a system which is used for digital television or for mobile television, and they use the system from Europe, which is DAB, digital audio broadcast, which is a radio system, to transmit videos. Okay, because we are in the world of digital modulation and digital encoding, so you can transmit any content, yes, in the system. This is also true in DRM. Even in DRM we have a feature like demo where you can transmit videos. So we can have all formats that you want. Okay. In Korea they created their own standard. Well, I think anyway this is a public issue, and I think that EWS, every country will probably have its own guidelines, its own implementation. But the idea in Korea was to transmit just basic text messages and an alert signal in the case of emergency. The service is operated by KBS in Korea, and the authority that issues the emergency message is the Korean National Emergency Agency. Well, in the Korean standard, just some words what is defined in the standard. You will find, for example, they will define receiver types. Yes, Nadim, he told us already that there are two types of receivers basically. One receiver is what they call in Korea a common receiver, which is, you can get the message, but the receiver has to be switched on. So this is typically a mobile phone or a car navigation system. And then we have dedicated receivers. These are receivers that are specially dedicated, and they are always listening to a signal, to the emergency signal, and they switch themselves on and alert the people in case of emergency warning. Okay. In Korea, what they did is they really tried to have a emergency warning system that is deployed with common receivers. So this means on mobile phones and on car navigation systems. In the standard, you will find, of course, the message, the emergency message that has to be transmitted, but you will also find some other things that have to be defined around. You would find, for example, the kind of disaster. This is what I found also with other systems, which is a kind of, very abbreviation that you would use to qualify what kind of disaster we have. It can be earthquake or a nuclear power plant accident or a hurricane and things like this. It can also be testing if necessary. Then you will get an order or a priority of the warning. Okay, in Korea they used 3 levels of priorities, and you can combine. If it's a low priority, you would have no alert, or if it's a higher priority, you can have audio and other things to prevent people. You would have the announcement time in the message, and also the disaster area. Okay, because not all areas are concerned. I can show you some slides where you can see how the Koreans did it. So show the next slide, please. On this slide you can see, this is a car navigation system which has been produced according to the Korean standard. So you can see, if somebody goes to Korea, I invite you to take a taxi, and you see that all the taxis, they have a car navigation systems that is based, as a car navigation system as we know it, but they will take information that is broadcasted with a digital radio system in Korea, and they would use this information to calculate the best way to go from one point to another point. And in these traffic information is also transmitted in the digital radio system. And oh, sorry, you have the next one. This slide you see. There's a DMB phone. Okay, it's the same. So the DMB phone, what would you see? You would see the video, and then you have the text message that would come up in addition to the video. Okay. So in Korea, all Samsung phones and LG phones, they are compliant to the standard, and this feature is really used. It has been used last time during the Japanese earthquake tsunami in last year, so where it was used to distribute messages. Please, the next slide. This is an example in the United States. Okay, in the United States they use they used a system which is based on FM. And in FM, FM is not the how to say it, is not the best technology to transmit emergency warning system, because you have quite low coverage. Okay, but you have what you see. We have very cheap FM chips. This is what you can see here. So this gives you the possibility to have very cost-efficient receivers. Just a second, of a problem here. You can see also here we have different types of receivers. You have USB stick receivers, you have receivers in car radios, you have also receivers that you can plug on the wall and things like this. In the United States, the feature is used at least by 3 authorities. Okay. Could you just come back to the other slide? Okay, thank you. So this is used by the Homeland Security, by the Federal Emergency Management Agency, and also by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Okay, these people, they issue the messages, and all the receivers that you see on the right side are dedicated receivers. This you can see a little bit more on the next slide. Okay, these are, so it's not like in Korea where we had common receivers. It's really the feature, at least in the United States, it's used with dedicated receivers, and you can see these receivers, they all have a way to, it's the same thing, to transmit text messages and alert signals. Okay, and you can add some special features to these receivers, such as for example, text-to-speech converters for those who are sight impaired, or bed shakers and strobe light combination for those who are hearing impaired. Okay, to really wake up people and alert a maximum of people. Please show me the next slide. Okay, so how to implement this in DRM? So what we have seen in the first slides, we can do, all this can be done in DRM. You would use 2 features for doing this. The first feature that would be used is alternative frequency signal feature. Okay, and the second feature would be the announcement feature, the announcement signaling feature. Well, I don't know. I think this is a very common feature in FM, and in DRM is the same idea. Is that you're in your car, for example, you drive from one area to another area, and automatically, if the signal gets lower, the receiver will switch over to another signal with the same radio program, which is stronger. Okay, and so this is for you. You know the frequency will change, but for the listener, the experience is kind of seamless. Okay. And of course, this feature can also be realized in DRM. And the basic idea is to avoid double tuners, is that the receiver has a table where he will have different frequencies to which he can switch on for each service. The big advantage of this feature is that you can use it, of course, in DRM, DRM+, but you could also switch over from DRM to AM, so to different standards, AM to FM, FMRDS to DAB. So this feature is very easy to implement in DRM, and it's a multi-standard feature. You can also see on the slide the notion of the multiplex. This is just something which is particular about DRM and most digital radio systems. Is you can have up to 4 services in one multiplex. Yeah. So and you can this means you can have the feature for the complete multiplex for all 4 services or only for one service. So you can use it typically if you move from one area to another, but of course you can also use it in case of emergency alarm, that the receiver would automatically switch to the frequency which is the best to be used for emergency systems. And the next slide will show the announcement feature. Here you have the announcement feature. Well, what's the announcement feature? I think most of you experienced it already. This means you will listen, for example, to your radio, and then typically in Europe you will have a traffic message. So this means the current program is interrupted. You will get the traffic message, in general a little bit louder than the other signal, and then you switch back to the normal program. This is exactly what we need also for emergency warning system, and this feature is already implemented and standardized in DRM. Okay. These both features that I've presented are realized in a special channel for this, which is called the service description channel. So please show me the next slide. Yeah, this slide is a very, let's say it's a very technical slide. Of course, you know, we are a company, we are doing content servers and modulators, and this is the technology behind it. It's the most important things of this slide. What I want to show is that in DRM we have 3 types of channels. Okay, we have what we call the fast access channel, we have the service description channel, and we have the main service channel. And each channel, why do we have 3 channels? Because each channel has a different type of information, more or less important, and you have more or less mechanisms to make it as robust as possible and as good as possible. The feature, the EWS feature in DRM is realized in what we call the service description channel. And just show me the next slide, and you can see. So yeah, here you can see this is the service description channel. It's a very robust channel. Okay, so you have here for the technical experts, you can see that we use 4 QRM and 16 QRM, which are quite robust constellations, and it's also highly protected. This means we have good channel encoding. So in some modes, the SDC is even higher protected than the fast access channel. Okay. And what does this mean? This means that you have even higher coverage in the SDC than with the MSC. Yeah, this is a phenomenon that you might have experienced in FM. Sometimes you can see already the label of the radio station, yeah, but you cannot listen already to the radio station because the RDS system is already on air and you can already receive the signal, but you cannot get the audio yet. The same experience is with DRM. It's possible to transmit in the SDC higher coverage, a signal with a higher coverage if you have easy information. The last slide for my presentation, I will show you how the SDC is organized. So you can see in the SDC, you know, it's organized in entities, and each entity has a type of information. So for example, you can see how the multiplex is organized, all the labels of the radio station, the service identifiers are there. You can have conditional access, many things. You can see that the alternative frequency switching feature is taking something like 4 or 5 entities. So many things are involved, because this is a very complicated, feature. And we have, of course, the announcement support and switching, where we would find the emergency warning. Okay, you can see that in the announcing support and switching, we have already 4 messages that are predefined. We have travel, new flash, weather flash, and we have the 4th one, which is for warning and alarm that can be used for emergency warning system. And now we switch over to Alex.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Herman, and thank you very much for taking us quite clearly and quickly through some examples, and then some of the very how should I say, very internal features which make emergency warning in both audio data and visual to be carried very robustly through DRM. So we'll take definitely the idea of service description channel, the channel that carries all this information, and we'll pass you on to Alex Tsing from Fraunhofer Institute, who will also go in more detail about the whole emergency warning experience in DRM. Alex, are you there in Germany?
Yes, I'm there. Good afternoon to everybody. So far we've seen how the internal mechanisms work, and now let's have a look at how the emergency warning, first of all, will look like and present itself on DRM from the listener's perspective. And the second part of my presentation will be, what does a broadcaster need to take care of to be prepared for this kind of emergency warning, specifically on DRM. The next one, please. Next. There is one element in the DRM system that was not yet presented, that is the functional element, and that is information that is sent out in addition to the audio system. Of course, Digital Radio Mundial has audio as the main element, but there is more to it, and we will make use of that for the emergency warning system. In the beginning, Nadim mentioned that it is urgent and very important to give the information to the listeners as quickly as possible. What happened? What do I need to do? How do I need to behave? And of course, all this information as quickly as possible. And for that, we use the screen of the receiver. There are two elements how I can transmit text information, first of all. The one thing is the default standard DRM text messages. This is a part of the DRM standard that allows to automatically send out messages that will show up on the receiver screen without anything to be done by the listener. These are limited to 128 characters, short messages, and of course we would make use of this kind of information channel immediately in case of an emergency warning coming up. The second thing, the second text standard that is used in DRM is called Journaline. That is more advanced service using, again, Unicode, so all the scripts, all the languages can be supported in the world. It's meant also for all classes of receivers as long as there's a text screen. Now with this information channel I can give the detailed textual information, and I can give all the information that is relevant to the listener at that moment in multiple languages simultaneously. So the user can select from a menu what he is currently interested in, what he needs to know in his own language on the screen. A very helpful tool, and now let's have a look at how all this looks in the case of an emergency. Next one, please. As soon as the alarm signal is triggered over the air by the authorities, what happens is that all the DRM receivers will pick up the alarm signal from the DRM service they're currently tuned to, and either just start flashing and alerting the user, or they may also, as Herman has presented, automatically be transferred to another broadcast, to the emergency broadcast on another frequency or as another service, if required. In case the receivers have been switched off so far, there is a possibility in the digital domain to have them check the current status automatically in the background, even while they're switched off. So every few minutes they would just need to have a look at the SDC, the service description channel Herman has introduced, to see if currently an emergency program is going on, and then they will switch on completely and warn the listener automatically. All of the DRM receivers obviously will then start presenting the audio content of the emergency program, even those very simple receivers without any screen. As soon as they have a screen, at least a text screen, we will also use the text headlines, the text messages, and provide detailed information and instructions using the Journaline text service. Next one. In terms of the content, what can be sent out and what should be sent out, as I mentioned before, the audio program will typically be available in one language at a time, which is okay in many countries, but in countries like India or other large area countries where multiple languages are spoken, you want to be able to inform also people that are not currently on their home turf and give them the information as soon as possible. That enhances the audience of the emergency message and also speeds up the gathering of information, because even in my own language, I can look up the information, what to do next, and I don't need to wait for the announcer over the air to reach that piece of information in the loop. So it's a speed up and an enhancement option using text information in addition to audio. The detailed text information that should be provided is things like, what is the reason for the alarm signal, what do I need to do as an affected person, what region is affected, what can I do to get further information or further assistance, and so on. All this, as I mentioned before, in multiple languages with a single program. Next one. This is an example of a few text renderings what could be presented on air in case of an emergency. So imagine I'm listening to the announcement, maybe in a language I don't understand. I see the radio flashing, and now I have the chance on the screen to look up information, in this case in English. So in the first menu, AIR emergency broadcast, I would select the first item, information in English. Then I would have the option to see what's going on, to learn what I need to do, or where can I get help. I'm selecting what do I need to do, or what's going on, sorry. And then it tells me that there is a major tsunami coming up in a certain area at a certain time, and I'm supposed to move away from shore. I'm supposed to evacuate, to participate in the evacuation, and so on. All this is presented then and accessible to me. Next one. Now, what happens from a broadcaster's perspective? A typical broadcast network chain starts with a studio where the actual content is generated and the broadcast signal on air is configured. This information is then actually prepared and encoded for DRM in the content server for the different programs. This is where the audio encoder is encoded, the data is encoded, the text, the signaling is inserted, and the multiplex generated. Out of the content server comes the MDI signal, multiplex distribution interface information, and this is the DRM multiplex signal being sent to all the transmission sites where the signal is then modulated and put on air. Next one. Now, in case of an emergency, there must be some central authority which gives the alarm, and we've seen in Nadim's presentation and in Hermann's presentation in many countries, this central authority is already set up. This central authority would need to establish a link to the studio sites, and they in turn would activate their automated reconfiguration of the DRM programs for emergency. So the alarm signal will be inserted and the content is reconfigured to provide the audio program, the emergency audio program, and also the text information that should accompany the radio program for that particular case of emergency. Whereas obviously the actual transmitters are not affected by this change of signaling. Next one. Now, what I need to do to be, to interface from the studio to the content servers, and how to send the information from the authority to the studio. There are typical default methods. This is one example what could be done. There is a standard called UECP. This is for the automated announcement transfer used in studio infrastructure in many countries in the world. And forwarding the warning alert information, the activation of that signaling is part of the standard. And of course, there could be a simple web interface accessible to the authorities where they could manually trigger the alarm signal in the content server so that the broadcast signal on air will be accordingly reconfigured. Next one. Now, from a broadcaster's perspective, the biggest thing that needs to be taken care of is the preparation. The emergency alarm signaling has to be set up properly and planned for all the DRM broadcasts, including the alternative frequency link to the emergency program if there is a different one than the current listen to program. The trigger path has to be established from the authority to the studios and then eventually to the content servers, and all the textual information should be prepared for all typical cases of emergencies. You don't want to be there starting to create the program and the accompanying information, finding out about locations together and so on. In the case of an emergency, this really should be prepared as much as possible. So this is about content. Now, if the emergency alert happens, what you need to do is start broadcasting the emergency program, obviously, including the audio and text, eventually probably replacing the one of the regular programs, and then switch all the receivers listening and currently tuned to other services, make them switch to this emergency program. So send out this switch trigger on all DRM frequencies. Next one. As a summary, we can say DRM has all the required tools built in to give this complete mass notification in case of disasters and catastrophes. The biggest thing is the preparation. The alarm trigger routing, the content preparation, and of course the receiver functionality. We had one question already in the forum. asking if such an add-on chip as is required for the FM receivers would be required for digital as well. And the answer is no, not necessarily, as I've mentioned before. We have in the digital world, we have an easy way to check the SDC from time to time, the service description channel, and this will continuously then indicate currently an emergency is going on. So the receiver can have a look every few minutes. If an emergency is going on, it will switch on automatically and completely and present the content. Thank you so much from my side, and now I guess we are ready to take your questions.
Yes. Okay, thank you very much to Sharad, to Nadim, Lindsay, Herman and Alex. They will be all available to take your questions, and I've picked up already one. Obviously our presentation was quite full with both the analog and digital DRM aspects, and some of you probably could follow but would like to look at the slides a bit more carefully, and the answer is yes, the presentations will be made available, and you will also be able to ask questions after the webinar if looking through it something doesn't seem very clear. So but let's pick up some questions already from what we have been receiving during the presentation. So can I read you panelists a question from Mr. Andrei Chernyakov, who asks, how would you determine where the warning should go if you need to warn specific territory, but EWS is running over broadcasting TDMB system? So I suppose this is a question to you, Herman. So how would you determine where it should go if the emergency warning system is running over TDMB?
Well, if it's running over TDMB, well, the coverage of TDMB is quite limited by comparison to DRM. Yeah. So the way they would, the way the Koreans did it, yes, is they defined several regions, and for each region you have a certain number of transmitters, and you can arrange it in a way that the emergency message is only transmitted in these regions where you have these transmitters. Okay.
Okay. Anyone wants to add anything?
Yes, well, I could add one thing. In DRM we have a way for alternative frequencies to define regions as well. Even if the broadcast reaches a whole country, you could indicate that the emergency alternative broadcast is only available in a certain region. So that's one option. In general, I would say, of course, if there's a real emergency, then probably if you have a little overspill, that's not as problematic as not reaching the core people. So you always would be happy to have a little larger area than a too small area.
Andrei, you are online. Could you hear that?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much for clarification. But if probably you know where I'm from a Russian TV and radio network, and we're really concerned about this question because the territory of Russia is very wide. And talking about DRM, we're really concerned about if we're running on a long waves or short waves, we're covering a pretty big territory, and there's no way we can use alternative frequency planning on those territories. But for emergency warning, we're really concerned about warn a specific territory with available media we have in those territories. But of course, it will also cover some additional or nearest territory which should not be warned in any case. That's the reason why I asked you this question.
I understand. So the question is really if on TDMB you are going on limited areas, in DRM you might be going with your emergency warning to too large and unspecified areas, whereas you want to pick up particular areas where an emergency has happened rather than alert the whole country or make a lot of people very nervous. Is that what you mean?
Yes, exactly. Yeah? And I put TDMB just for example. I can put here DRM.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
Because so, just for your information, sorry, just one additional information. In Korea, yeah, they defined only one region with also the whole country. So they did it nationwide, the emergency warning system. And this is probably not what we would like to do in Russia.
because it's not a case in Russia. For example, what happened with the flood last week in Krasnodarsky Krai. So the Krasnodarsky Krai is probably more than the whole France, and because of this flood in one particular city, we cannot just warn the territory of France about flooding.
No, that's fully understood. The emergency information, would that be broadcast locally, or would that be on the national channel? The actual information.
That was my question. If anyone has some experience on how to manage the whole media to deliver this emergency warnings, that will be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you have a different medias like DRM, DVB, DVB-T, DVB-T2, or anything like that, or analog, maybe you have some kind of understanding what's the better way to implement or deploy this emergency procedure plan.
Guys, may I take up this part of this question? This is Sharad here.
Yes, Sharad, please go ahead.
See, as probably Nadeem hinted at it in his introduction, the system in the Japanese type of EWBS is very well organized. It works on the codes. So each of the geographical areas which they have identified has a definitive code. And each of the countries actually have a country code. And the country code has already been put in a recommendation by the ITU due to the efforts of the Japanese broadcasters and APU. So it is a recommendation that specific countries have specific codes. So all the system, the EWBS system, works on these codes. It is not that anytime something happens in a part of the country, the whole country gets alerted. It is only that specific part of the country gets alerted with that kind of a code. Well, I am probably talking about an analog situation, but I'm pretty sure that this is also being used in the digital part as well. So the answer to the question that was raised, which I have not received here in the chat, is that it is possible to have specific codes and the receivers respond to those specific codes in those areas, and they don't respond to the other codes. So whenever there is any catastrophe, any disaster, it is not necessary to alert everybody who is in that area or in the countrywide. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sharad. So can I have the last word on this? Because it seems like we go from very small areas to very big. So DRM definitely can do the big areas. But what do we do if we want to select a particular area? Is there an answer to that, panelists?
If I may add to that, yes. The Japanese system, or the ITU recommendation where it uses this code, the code has three parts where you can add whatever information you want. We have seen that in the Japanese examples that they have used these three parts to either add a geographical location, you could add the geographical location, or you could either add a timestamp, for example, at this time, at this location. So because the whole system is completely automated, that can also be done.
Okay, that was on the analog system. How about DRM?
Yeah.
Yeah. Alex, Lindsay?
Well, as I mentioned in DRM, what you could do if you have a local coverage for this particular area, you could still send out the emergency through the major channels, even the large area channels, but the switching would only take place for a certain region to the emergency program, because you could identify that this emergency program is only available in a certain region and probably even at certain times, of course not for immediate thing. So you could restrict the region, that's exactly it.
Okay, so both in analog and digital, Andrei, this can be done so it hits, as it were, the particular reason which is suffering the emergency. Now let's move to another question. Andrew Leister is asking if there are any techniques in place to stop unauthorized exploits of this service. In other words, I assume that it is about somebody trying to create a lot of headache by using the EWS. And Andrew is online as well, and if I haven't understood the question correctly, he can correct me.
No, that's right.
Okay, I'm Alex here. I guess that the big, the obvious thing that I've discussed and that comes to people's mind is, if I have a private station, I could probably misuse it to get other people tuned to my station. That is not the case, because the DRM system, the alternative frequency warning and switching, works in a way that the currently tuned station has to explicitly and actively tell me to tune away from the currently received station. I can't attract people, I can only send people away from my station. So this is what I tried to explain and what Hermann explained in the beginning with the alternative frequency switching. In the signaling path, the authority must be able to reach all the radio stations. The common broadcast, emergency broadcast frequency has to be set up and defined in advance, and then all the stations need to tell their listeners, the receivers currently tuned to their station, to now switch to the emergency frequency, probably in a certain region. So the issue is not as big as it seems initially.
Andrew, does that make sense?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay. We also have a question from Amiruddin Jamaat. He is going back to the analog version, and obviously he was quite impressed with the radio in the box and wanted to know how big, if I may say so, is the small area it will cover, and what is the power of the transmitter. Nadim, Sharad?
Yeah. Thank you, Xandra. It's Nadim here again.
Yeah.
Yeah. The radio box, it comes in two versions at the moment, uses FM transmitter. One is a 30-watt transmitter, the other one with a 100-watt transmitter. The 30-watt transmitter can cover coverage area and radius of about 5 to 7 kilometers, and 100-watt version can go up to about 10 kilometers.
Okay. Amiruddin, does that answer your question? Yeah? Okay. Oops. Right. We also have two questions from Yuri Maiboroda. I hope you could, Yuri, follow the slides. And I will answer your second question. Yes, the presentation will be shared to the DRM site. We will send links. And there is a question about if there is a practical implementation of this emergency warning broadcast system through DRM, and if some authorities plan to create such systems based on DRM standard. I don't know if any of the panelists wants to take these questions. Lindsay? Hello? Hello?
Okay, Alex here. I can probably say something about it. The functionality that is in the DRM specification is not a whole overall emergency plan. That really has to be set up by national authorities. How to distribute this emergency, who's responsible for providing the signaling, and so on. So DRM really just takes care of the transport and of alerting the receivers and probably switching them automatically. Now, this part of the section is the same, for example, that is used, the same functionality that is used and available on the DAB or DMB platform. That is one thing. The other thing is it has been, of course, tested in detail, the functionality during the development of DRM. About countries already rolling out this information, I know that on the DAB platform, this is currently the thing in Germany. There is the discussion how to implement the mandatory emergency alerting to the receivers on a national basis. This will probably be taken over, this task, by basically providing this emergency program by the public broadcasters, and the signaling is then sent out accordingly, the signal for the receivers to switch to this emergency program. So the mechanism is exactly the same as in DRM.
Okay. Yuri, are you still there? Yuri, are you still, Yuri? Yuri, are you still there? Did you listen? Did you hear the answer?
Yes, I've heard the answer. Thank you very much.
Okay, okay. We can hear you, but faintly. But I thought you can. You could hear the answer. I think, Herman, you have to mute yourself a bit because we can hear you breathing from France. Very nice French air. And I will just have one last question, which was partly answered. It's about this idea of having a separate chip for emergency warning in analog and in DRM. And I know this is a very simple question. So would the DRM need anything extra, either as a broadcaster or as a receiver, to make it work in emergency warning mode, so to speak?
No, well, this is what I already covered, I guess, during the presentation itself.
Yeah, I know, but
it wouldn't.
Just to...
Right, it wouldn't, because you could ask the receiver manufacturers to implement easily the behavior that they should check this particular service description channel that Herman described regularly, every few minutes, whatever the interval should be. And as long as there is an emergency signaling on air, this warning, as long as it takes and is on air and active, the SDC will continuously carry this particular flag, which means that the receiver, whenever it's turned on, will detect immediately, oh, right now there is an emergency broadcast going on, and then it can switch on the rest of the device and activate the loudspeakers and so on and present the content. This is technically not a problem. However, as I put also in my presentation, it is up to the authorities in a certain region to demand this from receivers, because as we've also seen with the Japanese and the Korean system, you can't force everybody to implement these features unless it is a national authority that does so. So a national authority could easily say, we need to have automatic switch on in all the receivers sold in this country. Internationally, as a technology, this couldn't be mandated, obviously. But the technology, the possibilities are there.
And I think this also takes care partly of the question that Mr. Alexander Streltsov asked, if the DRM receivers with existing already have the emergency mechanism. And the answer, I heard you correctly, is that in a sense that is something we hope that DRM receivers will be produced nationally, and that is a feature that should be required from receiver manufacturers. In Russia, when DRM is introduced, that should be something that receiver manufacturers in Russia should take care of, as Russia is such a big country, and unfortunately from time to time they look like there are emergencies. And one question to, I suppose, to Alex again. How long does it take to transmit via journal line on DRM30 in AM, in other words, an A4 page of text? This is from John Westland.
Oh, well, that's an interesting question. Journal line uses for the transport of information an XML-based structure, which is then binary encoded and compressed. Since it is pure text information in UTF-8 format for those experts, Unicode, it is quite a small amount of data that is actually sent. A A4 page, if I remember correctly, is like 4 kilobytes or 4,000 characters of text, roughly. I may be wrong by a magnitude of 2 or something, but this is roughly it. So if you assign for the journal line in your emergency broadcast a capacity of 4 kilobits per second, it would take 8 seconds to have the 4 kilobytes transmitted, and since it's compressed, it's probably only in the range of 4 seconds.
John, you are on. We can hear you now. Is that the answer you were looking for?
Absolutely. I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
We, as Radio Australia, I'm the distribution manager of Radio Australia. We are actually engaged in DRM broadcasting at the moment, but we are also in discussion with our local Bureau of Meteorology on the potential for integrating both audio broadcasting over long distance, over shortwave into the South Pacific, but also transmitting weather information. Not strictly emergency weather information, but weather information on a regular basis. And our BOM, our Bureau of Meteorology, has a responsibility to broadcast weather information into the South Pacific, and they are interested in integrating with our distribution system to broadcast text as well, particularly for those users that actually have DRM decoders associated through software and into computers. We're very interested in actually building that into our system, and I'm interested in just knowing how much time it might take off air, as if we were to say, give you 30 seconds, how much text can we broadcast, and we present and say, for the next 30 seconds, your machine will decode text. That's kind of a level of detail we haven't gone anywhere near into, but I think it's a very interesting option for us in the future.
John, that's most interesting, and it's how shall I say? It's taking DRM and doing something useful for you and your relationship with the Pacific Islands, and we are extremely interested as a consortium, and I'm sure ABU as well. So please let us know how this works, because this might help other people looking at DRM as a carrier of information, emergency or meteo, to faraway places. And I think that might be a sort of a sunny question and a good look to the future to end this webinar. But before I thank the panelists and also the participants, I would like to ask Nadim, because he knows it much better than I do, how exactly everything, including the questions and answers, can be made available once we leave our webinar room.
Yeah, we are doing a recording of this session, and it will be available in actually in a video format, which will be quite a big file. I think the best way will be if DRM could maybe provide it on their website for everybody to download. That will be the best option. As for the presentations, I think we have the email addresses of all the participants. We could actually just email it as a PDF file. That will be the best for the presentations.
Okay, so you can get a PDF file. We'll put it on our website, drm.org, www.drm.org. So you will be getting it there very, very soon. And you also have our address, projectoffice@drm.org, and you can ask, continue to send questions and get answers from us and be in touch with us. So you have here the address, drm.org, and also inquiries and comments at the bottom of the page, projectoffice@drm.org. So we will make everything available. Everything you saw and heard is publicly or will be publicly available. With that, I thank everyone, first and foremost, to Sharad, Nadim, and ABU for this webinar. I'm also thanking all the panelists, to Lindsay, Herman, and Alex, and also to our project office, to Hilary and Janet, for having run it together with Nadim so very, very smoothly. Thank you very, very much. We never had any emergency during this webinar, so let's hope we won't have any in real life. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.